and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I'm your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down yet another NASCAR race is Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Man, I'm excited for this Bristol race, dude. This is the last race in this little first round of the playoffs here. We see a bunch of guys are in need of either a victory or a really strong finish. I think this is going to be very reminiscent of the first race here last year where we saw 17 cautions because there's going to be so many people jockeying for position. I think this is going to be one of the best races of the season.
Yeah, obviously going to Bristol, going under the lights on Saturday night to not compete with the NFL, which I think is smart. Do you have the list of the people that we're basically banking on to get a win in order to advance?
Yeah, so it's Michael McDowell. I mean, that ain't happening.
Poor guy.
Yeah, and then I think Kurt Busch is one of the guys. He's currently as the last guy into the next round, but
okay.
You know, he's probably going to need a victory here or an extremely strong finish. William Byron, who has not looked good the two races, and then his Hendrick teammate Alex Bowman is the other guy on the outside looking in with Tyler Reddick also in that last four.
It's pretty crazy. Those two guys I was really excited about coming into the playoff. Now there's a chance they might get booted in the first round, which is pretty wild. So let's take a look at the betting odds for this week. And we're obviously Bass Pro Shops, Night Race 2021. Kyle Busch is the dominant favorite right behind Kyle Larson. There is a sizable gap this week. Usually, like last week, there was kind of a 6-8 guys kind of inside that 10-1. Now we have really 4 drivers that are dominating, and then a bunch of guys in kind of that 10 to 15 range, and then another drop off into the 20s. Initial leans, initial thoughts. Where's your head at for looking at when you're looking at outright winners?
Yeah, I definitely see the reason why Kyle Busch is the heavy favorite here. He's probably been the most dominant racer at Bristol, especially over the last 10 years or so, and then looking at his entire career. But, you know, this is a guy who he has had some pretty bad luck in races once the playoffs have started last week, finishing outside the top 4 after, you know, being near the top the entire time. And then Kyle Larson, of course, he's just been so dominant. I'm looking more again. I will not be in on those top 2 guys for the outright market. I like the guys after them. You know, Hamlin already got his victory. I don't think there's any push for him to get one here. I like Chase Elliott and below all the way down to Martin Truex at 18-1. I find it interesting that his number is so low when he's run so well at short tracks, not necessarily Bristol, but I mean, we saw it last week, how good he was at Richmond.
Well, and I think that's the interesting question, right? Do we trust the Bristol history, or do we go, this guy's really good at short tracks and has the potential, especially the way he's been running as of the last couple of races, to run really well and we're getting a decent price? Or do we just say, this is a guy who doesn't run well at Bristol for whatever reason, and even that 18-1 number, as enticing as it can be, it is probably one to avoid.
Yeah, you know, and then I mentioned this to you prior to us recording here. I saw a pretty interesting little stat here. The last 3 winners at Bristol all started in the top 5 of the race, and then 5 of the last 6 started in the top 10. Nice. So we're looking at a track where if you're not starting from, you know, the top of the field, you're probably not going to win this race. I think it's something like 3 times over the last like 25 races, somebody who started outside the top 15 won this. So you're looking at a very small selection of drivers here who really have a legit chance. And those are all the guys in that like 18-1 above number. And, you know, Truex starting on the pole at 18-1, there's a shot where he jumps out to the lead early, paces the field, does everything right in pit stall and all that stuff, and he winds up winning again. So that's a great number, something I'll probably have a little bit of money on.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid. It's really compelling. I like Joey Logano a lot at 10-1, a driver who's done really well at this track. Doesn't have a win, but in his last 6 races, 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, with the third being his best finish. Kind of just runs really well at short tracks in general. Over his last 20 races, has a win, has 10 top 5s, 14 top 10s, and is in a good position. I think a couple weeks ago I really liked him. Was basically there until he wasn't there at the last couple laps, and then he's somebody that I feel really good about. And I haven't looked. I haven't looked at the overall championship, but I'm wondering what his number is, because that could be it could be an interesting way. Yeah, he's 10-1 to win the championship as well. That might be a nice pivot. Holding obviously that Kyle Larson 12-1 might be an interesting way to look.
Yeah, Logano is a guy like you just said. His short track history is one of the best in the Cup Series. So this is a guy who last week he finished 4th at Richmond, and yeah, he may not be the best at Bristol, but it's a very similar sized track. It requires the same kind of driving, the same kind of technique. And Logano's a guy who, he hasn't won in quite a while, so he's kind of due. He's that kind of driver where you expect him to run really well on a consistent basis. And because he hasn't won in a long time, he's a guy who I like to bank on eventually maybe getting that win, like I was doing with Denny Hamlin early in the season. So at 10-1 for this race, that's a great number. And it's the reason why I'm avoiding those top 2 guys at such low juice.
Yeah. And if we like him to potentially win the race, or at least be really competitive, that in theory should bank him into the next round. It'll make his outright number to win the championship a lot lower. So if you're on board with Joey Logano, this is a good time to jump in. Ryan Blaney, I'm kind of looking at him. I don't necessarily love him at 15-1 to outright, but that 5-1 to top 3 and the 2-1 to top 5 are both really compelling.
Screw Ryan Blaney. he got me out of my Austin Dillon top 10 last week, so I still hold a little bit of animosity towards him going into this race. But no, I mean, being honest, Blaney is another guy who you've talked about him numerous times. I mean, he's starting 7th this week, so he falls into that category of somebody who can win this race. He won 2 races in a row just 4 races ago. 10th last week at Richmond. He was running really fast the entire race. So, I mean, at 15-1 for this week is a great number, and somebody who coming up, he's got a lot of tracks where he's very successful at. So if you look at a future for an outright championship, he's another guy I like hedging for with a Larson ticket out.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing with him is basically his last 3 races at this track have been started 14th, finished 13th, started 12th, finished 10th. And then he started 4th and had an accident and finished 40th. So not great recent results, but has had some success at times, and runs pretty well on short tracks. And obviously winning both those races coming into the playoff was probably huge for his confidence. So it's an interesting number, a number that I could find myself gravitating towards. And if I'm willing to take the jump to get to a top 5 or top 3, maybe I should throw a little bit on that outright. But Truex running better despite his struggles, better number, and outside of his Bristol struggles, runs really well at short track. So he could be an easy way to pivot if you want to look for a little more juice. In terms of placing top 3, top 5, is there any other drivers that are compelling numbers to you?
Yeah, I really like Chase Elliott this week. I think he's a guy who you'll see when we talk DraftKings. I mean, very much like Logano, he's due for a win. He hasn't won since 4th of July at Road America. Yeah. So I think he's just such a good driver that you have to expect him to eventually get into the winner's circle. I mean, he's got 5 of his last 6 races inside the top 10, with 3 of those being top 5 finishes. Last week was in the top 5 at Richmond. So I think Elliott is a guy who might be able to buck this trend of Chevys not being victorious here at Bristol since 8 races ago. So Chevrolet is looking for their first victory in a while here in Tennessee. And I think that Elliott gives them their best shot.
For Truex, do we think the 6-1 for a top 3 or the plus 260 for a top 5 is worth its shot? Or do you think it's really just either he drives really well and kind of wins the race from the pole position, or things get really ugly and he kind of finishes where he typically finishes in this race?
No, Martin Truex to me is one of the weirdest numbers here. I mean, if they're going based off of history, yeah, this is not a track where he excels at. But of late at short tracks, Martin Truex is maybe to Kyle Busch and Joey Logano the best driver. And I mean, like we just talked about, he's coming off of a victory at Richmond where he was never that successful at. And it's such a big number. Yeah, I'll probably be in the top 5 market with him, along with the top 3 market, along with matchups, and even a small change on the overall victory just for that big ass number of 18-1. Yeah. I mean, why pass that up?
So you want to dive a little deeper and look at some other finishing position, any other drivers? You know, we like to take our shots, especially when we're talking maybe top 10 or even top 20 markets. Is there any numbers from that perspective that you're interested in?
I can't help but look at Austin Dillon again. I mean, this week he's plus 170 to top 10. And last week, if it wasn't for, I don't know what happened on the last lap, but he was running top 10 and then that damn Ryan Blaney passed him up. So I like him. That's a really good number. And then when you go to the top 20 market, I mean, I think these numbers are a little bit inflated. Like when you look at an Eric Jones, he's minus 125 to top 20, as opposed to top 10 number with him is 6-1.
Yeah.
And Eric Jones
give me that top 10 number.
Yeah. I would much rather.
Last 2 races, started 20th, finished 3rd, started 15th, finished 5th. He had a couple 20, finished outside the top 20, but then the race before that, he finished 5th. 3 of his last 5 races finished in the top 5. I get 6-1 on a guy who, I know his car isn't as good. I know things haven't been going quite as well, but 6-1 on a driver who can run this well on this track for a top 10. Give me that all day.
Yeah, that is a number that it's really weird too when you see the separation of the T10 at 6-1 and then the top 20 at minus 125. You would think that'd be closer to 2-1 or that's like a plus 150.
He'll finish in the top 20, but outside the top 10. Like that's the expectations.
And if that's the case, you and I are both. I'm going to go with the bigger number and just bet less on the 6-1.
Yeah, give me that. Give me that 6-1. Martin Truex at minus 110 to top 10. Like that's
a great number.
Alex Bowman at plus 120. I know he's been running crappy, but this is a playoff driver we're talking about. He's somebody that's interesting though, like him and Byron and some of these guys that really need to win. Like
they could be the ones that caused us.
Yes.
17 accidents.
They could be either, if you ain't first, you're last, Ricky Bobby kind of scenario. So this is
you're right.
So that taking placings on some of those guys might be a bigger risk than it might be worth. But yeah, and then I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get too crazy. Can we go? I mean, let's talk DFS, and then I'll throw a number at you because I think. Let's throw up your core. Brian's DFS score, starting with Chase Elliott. Talk to me. Obviously, we talked a little Elliott in terms of a bet, but over on DraftKings at 10-5, I think makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I mean, he's starting in the position that he finished last week at Richmond at 4th. He's got that potential to lead a ton of laps here if he could jump out to the front. Yep. His top 10 at Richmond last week made it 6 top 10s in the last 7 short track races for him. And that doesn't include a victory at Bristol for an all-star race last year. He's got 5 top 5s in those 7 races. And like I said, he's due to win. A driver as good as him, you expect more victories than what we've seen out of him over the second half of the season. And that's eventually going to happen. And then he's currently sitting right near the cusp of cutoff for the next round of playoff cuts. So I think it's going to be really imperative for him to try to get as many playoff points as possible to move closer to that top 4 to avoid, needing better finishes for this next round of playoff races.
100%.
Yeah. Kurt Busch, 9,600, top 10 in 4 of the last 5 here. He wants to go out with a bang at Chip Ganassi before he transitions to 2311. And he's currently, like I said, leading into the show, the last guy advancing to the next round of the playoffs. So he's going to be in need of moving ahead, which never spells out good things for guys driving aggressively. But I'm putting my faith in the old man. And then I'm going with the other old guy who I have yet to really back this year, but as consistent as they come, starting 8th, he's going to finish inside the top 8, inside the top 10, guaranteed, I think, this year. He's among the leaders in the Cup Series in top 10 finishes. He won this race last year in the playoffs. He's still looking for his first win, which how amazing would that be? His first win of this year is coming off of the last win last year. That would be awesome. And then Chase Briscoe. No Cup history here, but in the Xfinity Series, 4 straight top 5s in 2019 and 2020. I think he's the surprise for this week. And Briscoe is going to be one of those guys that is going to be in a lot of DFS winning lineups.
Yep. I like all of those calls. We'll flip over. We'll look at mine. Going back to Kyle Busch because I'm a glutton for punishment. I like to have him lose me all the money. So that's a great time. We were talking a little bit before the show, but I really think it is a week where either you want to get really heavy at the top and fill it in with cheap guys, or kind of hang out in that and kind of just punt all the 11K guys and get into that 9-10K range and just load up on those guys.
Yep.
So I will go Busch. I will go Larson. Double Kyle this week. Kyle Larson has been a dominant all season. He runs pretty well at all these tracks. Obviously doesn't have the most fantastic track record, but has some top 10s, a top 5. I think he has a really strong race and runs really, really, really well. And it's Eric Jones week. It's gross. I know he's 6,400, but he is a guy that pops at this track. And, when we kind of dig down deep and we're looking for people that we can rely on, Eric Jones is usually the guy that we're not able to do that. But that's the exact reason I'm on him. He can pop. He can do really well. He can also be just completely garbage and wreck out and be out of the way. But I think at 6,400, he's worth the risk. And BJ McLeod, gross,
this is great,
right? But why don't you hit everybody with that stat that you were telling me about pre-show?
Yeah, I actually got this from somebody on Twitter we follow. I think it's iRacing on Twitter. He's yet to DNF this year, and at $4,900 for a guy who is as consistent as they come in terms of finishing the races at or near where he's starting. I mean, dude's worst finish. He hasn't finished below 30th in the last 12 races this year. And when you're getting a guy for $4,900 who's going to get you in the upper teens, low 20s, that is somebody who helps you win those big GPP contests.
Yep. And this is a guy that his last 3 Bristols has improved on his starting position, 36 to 32, 33 to 32. And 39 to 28, and he got 28th with an accident. He didn't even finish the race. So if we can get a finished race, maybe he can get 26, 25. And when you consider he's starting 32nd at sub 5K, he allows you to do a ton with your lineups, opens up a lot. You won't feel great about using him, but those are the exact guys in GPPs and in tournaments that you need to be using to kind of allow you to reach more of these upper echelon, higher tier guys. So I think he makes a lot of sense. And that bet I was telling you about, Brian, we can get BJ McLeod to top 20 at 12 to 1.
Woo! I love that.
See what happens. See if we
Let's
can
do it.
Get a little extra $60 for Sunday NFL. I think that could be a fun bet for us all to sweat together.
I'm going to do that right now. That's going in there. And I'm going to hit up our boy on Twitter who gave me that wonderful number a few weeks ago too. Cause the fact that somebody has gone an entire season without DNFing with a car that he is funding.
This is the week that he DNFs because I jump on him, because I say to play him and I say to bet him. All right. Well,
which would be an absolute travesty, but what are you going to do?
All right, let's talk a few before we get out of here and before we hit everyone with our best bets. You said you had a few head-to-head matchups you were looking at. Let's talk about those. Anything? I'll let you kind of run the show and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'm looking at, I mentioned him. He's in my DFS core, and that's Chase Briscoe. I think he starting 20th. He's going up against Cole Custer. Briscoe is actually even money to finish ahead of Cole Custer. And when you're looking at their recent performances, Briscoe is finishing inside the top 20 on a pretty consistent basis, whereas Custer is one of those guys who, he's either really good or really crappy. You're looking outside the top 20 in 4 of his last 5. I know he's got an 11th in there, but I just don't trust his driving experience here. And Briscoe's history at this track in the Xfinity Series tells me that he will be the surprise driver this weekend that potentially even sneaks into the top 10. So I like Briscoe getting even money. And then Chase Elliott, like I said, I think he's got the car, he's got the means, he's got the ability to be the top driver, win this race, break the streak for Chevy. I love him in that matchup versus Hamlin at plus 115. That's a great number for a car as good as his with the Hendrick team. Getting even money for a matchup like that is something that I will jump all over every week.
You can get Martin Truex plus 110 against Brad Keselowski. I kind of like that if you want to just bank on Truex. You don't have to even worry about where he finishes as long as it's in front of Keselowski. You can avoid the top 10, top whatevers. What was there's one other one I was looking at. Oh, Austin Dillon minus 115 versus Matt D. You like Dillon. I'm simpatico with you there. I think that could make some sense.
There is, and there's one more I like in a group of 4. Daniel Suarez has the biggest odds amongst Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Matt D, and Bubba Wallace. Suarez among this group, it probably has the best history at this track. He runs really well at short tracks. The Trackhouse Racing team has been, hitting their stride at the back end of the season here. So getting plus 320 for a guy to win a group that's as good as he is here. Heck yeah.
Speaking of the worst guy in a group, we could also hit our boy Eric Jones to at 3-1 in a group with Chris Buescher, Cole Custer, and Ryan Newman.
That's funny. I actually have a wager in.
We don't have to top 10 it. We don't have to top 20 it. We just have to beat those 3 guys. And I feel like he could get 22nd and potentially beat all 3 of those guys. So.
What's funny is we were talking prior to recording too. I actually have 10 on both Briscoe and Eric Jones in that group because we were talking about it. Like if both of them at over 3-1, you're guaranteed to make money if one of those guys hits. Now I'm out double the amount, but I have a 50-50 chance here of making a profit on this wager.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense and good numbers to get behind. All right, Brian, we talked some bets, we talked some matchups, we talked some DFS. We got some lineups together. What is your best bet for the Bass Pro Shops Night Race 2021?
Well, I think he's going to have the biggest fish this week, and I've talked about him enough on this pod. That's Chase Elliott, man. Top 3 plus 270. I'll probably even have a little bit on him at an outright at 8-1, but I'm going a little bit safer. Give me Elliott to be the top Chevy as well, and get close to breaking the streak for Chevy.
I like that a lot. I think that makes a ton of sense. I'm going to kind of follow your footsteps and be a little safer than I would typically. I'm going to take Joey Logano to top 5 at plus 140. I think he's pretty safe this week. I think he's just trying to solidify the playoffs and kind of move along. And that 10-1 number is compelling. The plus 330 to top 3 is compelling, but I'll take plus money, plus 140 to top 5.
Nice. I can't give it. If both of us do it, we know what happens.
Yep. It's the combination curse for sure.
That's right.
If you are interested in football betting, make sure you go check out our NFL show. We break down our favorite bets over there. Go through player props, all that good stuff. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the NASCAR race on Saturday night. We'll be back next week to get ready for round 2 of the NASCAR playoffs. As this season's rolling along, there's lots of good racing left. We got NFL, we got college football, we got so much to enjoy, so much to bet on. As always, bet responsibly. Don't throw your mortgage on our picks. We're here to have fun. We're here to make this
Enjoyable for all.
Enjoyable for all. Good luck with your DFS. Good luck with your bets. We'll talk to y'all next time.